Hey everyone, welcome back to the EVOQ Bike Podcast. I am Tom, a coach here at EVOQ. We have an exciting guest, Patrick Collins, coming on today. His specialty is 100-mile mountain bike races. He has a wealth of knowledge and we're super excited to have him on today. Hey Patrick, thanks for doing this.
Sure, thanks for having me, Tom.
You used to race a lot of road and then cyclocross a lot and now mountain bike. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey to where you are now?
Sure, so I got into road cycling first when I was about 17 years old, just as a way to get in shape. And then when I went to college, I kind of joined a cycling club, started doing group rides, had a lot of fun. It was kind of like the race group rides, so it was a bit competitive. And at first I was getting dropped, but I got stronger and having a lot of fun. And the guys recommended I start racing, so I started doing some road races just in New England, the local scene. And I was having fun doing that, and then I jumped into cross right after that, and then kind of did that for at least 5 years. And then I worked my way up to the continental level, went to Europe, China a few times, did some pretty high level road racing. And then COVID hit and kind of just stopped everything. And I think a lot of people had to reevaluate their lives during that time. I got a full-time job and then got a mountain bike, and I just loved it and started doing mountain bike races and just enjoyed it more. And so now I'm kind of full into that. So
you've only been racing mountain bikes for like 3 years then, or?
Yeah. So 2020 is when I got my first real mountain bike.
Do you feel like your cyclocross experience translated fairly well, or how do you think you built up your skills so quickly?
So I will say I kind of sucked when I started. My skills were definitely not great, and it just took time, in building up that experience. I guess some of the cross skills translated, like line choice and momentum, but still mountain biking is way more gnarly, and so it just took time to build up those skills. And then I did have the engine from road racing, so that translated well.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really great for everyone to hear, that it did take time and that it wasn't just something that just flicked on automatically. And everyone has to build up their skills, and it's just something that takes time. That's really great to hear. Yeah. Do you want to share any of your experiences from racing in Europe or China or anything like that?
Sure. So I've been to China twice for racing. I did the Tour of Qinghai Lake in 2017 with CCB, and that was a very wild experience. It was considered the fourth unofficial Grand Tour. It's a 2-week long stage race with UCI pro teams and at altitude. So it was very, very difficult. And we started with 5 guys, and 2 of us finished. So
did you finish?
Yeah, I finished.
No way.
Yeah, it was.
I feel like that's an accomplishment from the sounds of it. I mean, that's incredible, really.
Yeah, it was really a character builder of like, just don't give up, just get through it. And I mean, I was crashing and getting sick and bad weather and just feeling unfamiliar. But it was a good experience overall. And then I did Poyang Lake in 2018 with CCB. And also with CCB, I went to Europe a few times for stage races, one in Poland, then a couple one days in the Netherlands and Belgium. And then in 2019, I kind of went over to Belgium on my own and did a bunch of kermesses. That was pretty awesome. It's definitely a unique style of road racing in Belgium.
That's what I've heard. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it seems like you definitely have a ton of racing experience in your career so far. So for those who are unfamiliar with the NUE Epic series, can you tell us a little bit about the distances for those events, the length of time that you're out there, stuff like that?
Sure. So the Epic series is mostly 100-mile mountain bike races. Some of them can be, like 92 miles or, 103. So it's roughly 100 miles, except for the last one in Big Bear, which is 100K. But they say that it's as hard as a 100-mile because it's at altitude, which I would agree with. It's very hard. In the times, you're out there for at least 6.5 hours. Like the fastest ones are like 6.5 hours. And then the longest one, uh, Margie Hessick, I did this year in 10 hours, 40 minutes. So up to 12 hours, basically. Pretty wild.
That's pretty crazy. Was that series your main focus for this year?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the main focus for this year. I started doing those races in 2021. I did Shenandoah and Wilderness, and that was kind of my intro to the series, and it piqued my interest. So then in 2022, I went to Mohican, and I won that, and then I was like, wow, maybe I can win this series if I do enough races and stay consistent. And I ended up winning in 2022 the series, and so I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep trying every year to win the series. So
And you
um,
won this year as well, right?
yeah,
Nice. Congratulations. I mean, that's a super big accomplishment to do it 2 years in a row and such a tough series.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I did all of the events this year on the calendar, which
All around the country, right?
yeah, yeah, from March until October.
That's awesome. Do you have any highlight races from this year that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think my best race was Margie Hessick in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. Um, it's 108 odd mile point to point race in just absolutely gnarly technical terrain. Like it's just crazy. Like you're off your bike quite a bit because it's so gnarly. Um, and I've
Like
kind of
having
built.
like you have to hike different parts or yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
it's like impossible to ride, basically. Um, it's just really brutal. Like I crashed like probably 3 times. And like I said, it takes almost 11 hours to complete. So it's truly an endurance test. And on that day, I just felt it was like one of those chainless days where you just feel awesome and you can just keep going. Um, I ended up second. The winner was 20 minutes ahead. I never saw him. It starts with a run, like a half-mile run, and then you jump on your bike. And he's like 6 feet tall, so he just sprinted the run, and I was kind of holding back, and I'll catch him later. But he was gone from the gun. But I was still really happy with that second place. Yeah, so that was probably the highlight of the season for me.
I love that. Yeah, congratulations. That's a great result. Was the run just for fun or just to be random, or what's the story there?
Well, it's a Le Mans start, so everybody puts their bikes down wherever they want, and then you got to run this little loop, grab your bike, hop on, and go. It's kind of a way to sort out the thousands, literally like thousands of people at the start, so that it's not as crazy when you're riding around. So, but it's still pretty hectic. But the start is like a really cool environment. They have like a band playing, and it's right at sunrise, and there's like thousands of people around, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Were there any races that were extra tough this year that you'd like to share? I mean,
Yeah,
they all sound really tough, but I guess exceptionally tough compared to the others.
the hardest race I did this year was Gigante di Piedra in Spain. So, as part of the prize for winning the 2022 series, I got this trip to Spain to do this race. And it's a 200K race in the mountains of around Valencia, Spain. And I like climbing, but this race had way too much climbing. Like, way too much. It was too hard. um,
What
and
sort of elevation?
oh man, uh, I don't know off the top of my head, but it was too much.
Yeah.
It's not quite at altitude, but it's just like you're either up or down, and you're going over literal mountain passes. Makes for awesome pictures, but it was really tough, and I did not have a good day. Like right from the start, I just didn't feel good, and then when you have to ride like 12 hours, it's like brutal. So, and I actually found out that I had COVID. So, like first time ever, I managed to escape it for 3 years, and then I go to Spain and get COVID. Um, yeah, it took almost 12 hours. I ended up third for the elite category, so I
That's
still rolled in.
that's awesome. Yeah, to even complete that when you're not feeling well with all that climbing is yeah, really incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what drew you to like the long distance marathon mountain bike format? Why do you enjoy these races?
Um, I think it's a good match with my background and what I enjoy doing. Um, like it's always an adventure out there, and I like adventuring and exploring. Um, and it rewards someone that's well balanced. And I feel like I'm not someone that like specializes in something. Like I'm not a climber or a sprinter or something like that. I'm just more all around, and I think it rewards those types of riders the most. Um, and I've built up just over a decade of racing hard. You just build up um, good endurance and um, muscle endurance. Like I think most people when they start doing these races, they get to a certain point where their body just shuts down, and it's more of like fatigue just builds up and it's unbearable, and it just ruins the race. But if you can get to a point where you can just you know resist that fatigue and not completely fall apart, then you're going to do pretty well. So I think I've reached that point.
So, are you saying that when you're kind of used to that feeling of fatigue and pushing through it, and that helps you succeed in these?
Yes, but also I think I've built up an ability to not get to a point where it's like debilitating. So, um, you know, cramping isn't really an issue for me, and getting like debilitatingly sore from like just pounding over rock gardens. Like, I think I've built up some resistance to that. Just not getting to that point where it's like, I can't do this anymore is like the biggest thing.
That makes sense. So I want to dive into some questions more specifically about these long format marathon mountain bike races. We talked a little bit about the starts already, but I want to hear a little bit more about the starts. Like, what are you doing for warming up for these events? What are your strategies for like right at the start, like positioning? Are you trying to get to the front of this huge number of people? And like, what is the pacing strategy right from the gun? I guess there's a few questions there. Trying to go into
Yeah.
those.
So it's totally course dependent. Um, I never warm up. Usually the starts are at like 6 or 7 a.m. So you get up early enough to eat a little breakfast, and then, yeah, go to the bathroom, and then just get to the start line basically. So no warm up. Um, Usually the starts are pretty tame. Like, people have an understanding that it's going to be a long day and that we shouldn't be sprinting off the line. Um, but that said, there has been some races where getting to the front and being at the front is important. So, for example, this year at Shenandoah, they changed the course up so that it's not this long paved start, and instead you're just going straight into a steep climb and single track. So getting to the front there was super important, and I made sure to do it. I didn't warm up for it, but like I said, it's not that important to warm up for a race that's so long, I feel like. And then I do try to stay pretty reserved in the first part of the race. Staying near the front, but not like pushing the pace. Just kind of letting other people do that.
Are you focusing on not letting people get away at the start, or are you okay with people getting away and bringing them back later? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I guess it depends on who it is. So if they're someone that I know can probably win, and that, I've raced with them before in several other races, and I know I can hang with them, then you kind of got to follow. Um, if it's something like clearly very unsustainable and they're just going to blow up, I'll let them go, and then I just close it down over time. I've done that a few times where um, I'll let them go, I keep them in sight, but then just reel them back. I think it's important not to burn those big matches super early.
So a lot of the starts for these are fairly tame, you said, except the ones where maybe there's single track pretty early on.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's course dependent. Like, the first climb is usually pretty hard. Everyone's fresh. Um, but yeah, it really does depend on the course and who's there, and um, how they're feeling. So, but usually it's pretty tame, especially if it's like a paved 4 mile, basically neutral start, which some courses are.
Are you trying to pre-ride any part of the course before the event? You've done the race a few times now, so maybe that makes it so you don't have to pre-ride, but maybe the first year where you did the entire series, were you trying to get out and pre-ride?
I did not pre-ride. Yeah, so all of it was new terrain to me. I guess that's part of the adventure aspect. Um, but so I went out to Bend, Oregon to do High Cascades, um, and I went out there a week early and just for like a vacation basically. And I did pre-ride the whole course over that week, just like kind of broke it up. And I feel like that really did benefit me, like knowing the course, where it was hard, where the tricky sections were, where I might kind of, where the navigation might be a bit tricky in some spots. So knowing that, I feel like it did benefit me. So if you can pre-ride, you probably should. And experience does help at these races for sure. Because getting lost it happens. It's happened to me a lot. Even with navigation on my GPS, like race signs disappear, people flip them. Yeah, so knowing the course is an advantage for sure.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I feel like with the fact that these are all around the country and they're just such a long distance, it's not like, and they're single track, it's not like you can just go out and drive parts of the course like some gravel events. Definitely makes it challenging for pre-riding, but that makes a lot of sense. Do you have any overall pacing strategies that you're keeping in mind for these events?
Um, yeah, I guess so. I don't have a power meter on my mountain bike, so I have a heart rate monitor, and I'm not looking down at that a lot. It's more like perceived exertion and how I'm feeling in the moment. And I think I have a pretty good feel on what is sustainable and just kind of metering that. And then also knowing that you're going to have to dig deep in some parts, especially if there's a big advantage to being part of a group, and you're going to have to dig deep to stay in that group. But yeah, overall, I'd say the pace is like sweet spot, basically. If I were to categorize it, like overall sweet spot with like spikes into like VO2.
For sure. So, for an event of this distance, I feel like fueling must be a big part of a successful day. What is your strategy going in, and how does it often play out?
Yeah, fueling is super important. Um, so usually I have like pre-race the day before. I mean, everything is carb focused. The day before, it's complex carbs like potatoes, oatmeal, um, and then the same for like pre-race breakfast, but just smaller. And then during the race, um, it's almost like you're constantly trying to get something in you, especially with mountain biking where it's tough to like get your hands off the bars sometimes. Wherever there's a moment to take a sip of something or eat something, I try to do that. Um, I usually like to start off with some solid food, um, like Haribo candy, um, and then in my bottles I'll have uh, carb mix. Usually I'm like overall probably 90 grams an hour of carbs. Um, I have had races where I've underdone it and paid the price, and overdone it and really paid the price. Um, I would say it's almost better to slightly underfuel than overfuel because just based on the experiences I've had, um, especially when it's hot out, overfueling can just absolutely ruin your day, and it's like a flip can get switched in your body where it's just like not processing anything that you're taking in, and the more you put in, the worse it gets. And in those bottles, I'll have. So usually, what I do is it's just sugar water. I'll put just table sugar, like on a scale, water, and then sea salt. And I like to have one that's that, and then one plain water, just to keep my mouth clear. I don't like getting like sticky mouth. But yeah, that's basically what I do.
Okay, I want to ask a couple questions about that. For the overfueling, was it like a moment where you took on too much too fast, or was it just the fact that it was a hot day and then the amount you normally have was just a little bit too much for the conditions, or what do you think happened there?
Yeah, I think it was mostly the heat, but also that I was low on water because of the heat, and I just had to drink like an entire bottle that clearly had too much carbs in it, just like all at once, basically. Um, yeah, so it was a mixture of underhydration and then too much at one moment and with the heat. That was Shenandoah, by the way.
Yes, I think I remember your Strava post for that one, and yeah, it seemed like it was a tough day. Did you end up finishing with those tough circumstances?
Yeah, I've never pulled out of a race, so I always got it out. Um, like, there's not many options to pull out of these races. Like, you're in the middle of the wilderness, basically, so you have to uh, get back home. So, yeah, I finished. I ended up fourth, but it was pretty brutal.
It sure sounded like it. For the salt in your bottles, how are you calculating the amount of salt you're putting in?
um, Roughly like a teaspoon per bottle. If it's hot, maybe two. I'm not too
Nice.
scientific about it.
I was just curious because I do the same thing with the sugar water and salt, and I've been trying to like dial in the salt amount because I feel like it's kind of a very personal number for how much salt to have or electrolytes.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if you had any specific recommendations, but it sounds like yeah, you have just kind of an estimate for normal weather and then hot weather.
Yeah. I mean, you can get sweat tests done and get super scientific about it, but I haven't done that.
Yeah, if it's working for you, then that's all that matters, really.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you just bringing two bottles then for these events?
Yeah. So I have two cages on my bike, and I used to start with another third bottle in my back pocket, but I don't do that anymore because it kind of the weight doesn't feel right on my back. Um, so I mostly just have like gels and solid food in my pockets, and then two bottles on the bike. And then at every aid station, I just swap bottles, and that's another whole part of the game is like planning aid station drop bags.
Tell us about it. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, so I mean, you got to know how many aid stations there are, where they are mileage wise, when you think you're going to get there, and then plan out the carbs per hour, and then put them in a plastic bag. But basically, what I do is I'll have pre-filled bottles, and then put those in the bag, and then whatever extra food I think I might need in the bags, and then you get to the aid station. Got to find your bag. Usually they line them up by number, so they're easy to find. And then usually there's someone there to actually help you get the bag too, like volunteers. So as you go into the aid station, you just like say your number and they get the bag, and then you just quickly just drop the empties, put the full ones in the bike, and just go. It takes like 10, 15 seconds maybe. Yeah, that's a thing that you have to plan for, and then also have to know how to do it well. Like some people, like they're fiddling around with refilling bottles, and you're just losing time doing that. So having pre-filled bottles ready is pretty important.
So a lot of these races, you have an opportunity to drop off bags for each aid station, like in the morning or the day before, and then they deliver them to each spot, and then they're ready for you when you get there.
Yep.
That's great. So the 2 bottles usually last you in between aid stations.
Yeah. So usually there's enough aid stations on course. I would say, but at least 4, sometimes like 6 aid stations, and a lot of them you kind of double back on, like they're located on the course where you pass it twice. So that's pretty convenient. I mean, I have stopped to just down they like pre-fill Dixie cups with water and Coke and stuff. Like I have stopped and downed those a few times when it's like super hot. I have taken a jug of water and poured it all over my head and body at aid stations just to cool off, basically.
That
Yeah,
seems effective.
it is. Yeah, especially for like perceived exertion, I feel like it makes a huge difference. Just be like feeling cool makes a big difference, and staying cool is another huge part of the game. Like most of the races are during the summer, and it can quickly get out of hand in terms of body temperature and dehydration. So managing that is really important.
Are you doing anything besides, just staying on top of hydration?
Um, well, yeah, there's the electrolyte component as well. So just thinking about salt. And then, like I said, just pouring water on you when you can, jumping in a river if it's convenient.
Have you done that?
Yeah, I have.
Nice. during a race?
Yeah.
It was just that hot, or what? How'd that
Yep.
happen? Yeah.
It was just super hot, and the river's right there. So,
Did you do it as like you're trying to do this fast to cool off, or did you take a second? Or
no, just like jump in, get wet, hop out.
I think that should be a new strategy for races. I think people could use that for their event. I love that.
Yeah.
So talk to me about mechanicals and flats for these long days. I feel like it probably is a big factor. How does that often play out?
Yep, it is, unfortunately. Flats are common. It's something I deal with probably in half the races I do. You just got to know how to deal with it when it happens and have everything you need to fix it, and just staying calm when it happens. Um, I'd say half the flats I have can just be fixed with stopping and letting the sealant do its job, and then just a little bit of CO2. Um, I've used a plug a handful of times, but the really bad ones where you got to put a tube in, those suck. But like I said, it happens, and I've in 2022 I did Wilderness 101, and on the first descent I flatted and went through all of my CO2s and was bumming CO2s off of very nice people and put a tube in and then flatted 4 more times during the race, but I still won. So it's gonna happen, and you just gotta like just get through it. And like these races are long enough where you can probably crawl back a lot of time. So
what are you bringing with you for fixing flats? Are you bringing some? It sounds like CO2 and a tube and some plugs. Is that what you're bringing?
yep, and tire levers.
Are you bringing a
Yeah,
pump or just the CO2?
no, just the CO2.
You're bringing like two of them, or
Yeah, two of them. Usually one big one, like 25 gram. You can probably get two inflations out of that one, and then a smaller one. Then I have a saddlebag where I put the tube in and the levers and the plug. And I think I can fit one CO2 in there. So most of the stuff is just in the saddlebag.
so what are you thinking about for tire selection?
Again, it's kind of course dependent, but I don't really think about it that much. I think like a good all around tire can do well in most races, unless it's like super muddy, then I'll probably put a more aggressive tire on. But usually it's just put on like an all around tire and just ride them all season until they flat.
Are you going for like a lightweight tire, or kind of in the middle?
Yeah, so I would say more in the middle. Like a lot of people are riding 2.4s. I don't go that wide. I'm like 2.25. So those are a bit lighter. Um, and yeah, I would say middle of the road weight, and then medium tread, 2.25.
Sweet. Do you have any strategies for getting through tough moments in the race? I know you said that you never back out of a race or not finish a race. Do you have any strategies for getting through it?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the bad things are going to happen no matter what during these races. And so you just got to remind yourself of that and stay calm and just ride the wave. Like things are going to go up and down. Um, yeah, and I guess it is a kind of a mindset too. Like you got to go into it thinking that you're gonna finish no matter what. So
I love that. Do you have any tips for riders interested in trying out some of these long mountain bike races?
yeah, I would say don't jump into a 100-mile mountain bike race like in your first year of mountain biking. Like work up to it. Start with the 20 mile, then the 50 mile, because you don't want to start out with something so hard and daunting and then not have a good time and then never do it again. So just work up to it. Um, I think having a solid endurance base is important as well. So training wise, I would say focus on endurance. Um, and then, yeah, just finding the fun in it. Like look at it as an adventure and, getting out in the woods and having a good time. That's how I view it.
That's really great. Yeah, I love that. So I want to ask some questions more specifically about training for these events. First, are you self-coached or do you work with a coach for training?
I don't have a coach. When I was road racing, I did have a coach, but since I'd say 2019, I have not had a coach. I feel like I have a good grasp of um, how I should train and what works for me and what I enjoy doing. Like that's the main focus for me. Is like I cycling is mostly like a passionate hobby for me that I'm decent at. So, and I like training and I like riding my bike. Um, and so that's the main focus for me. It's less structured than it was in the past.
Great. What would you say? You kind of shared a little bit there, but what is like your overall training strategy for preparing for these events?
Yeah, so like I said, it's mostly endurance focused, like just getting in a good amount of hours at um, you know, high endurance pace. So most of the rides I do like preseason and during the season are it's just mostly like high zone two rides, um, and then I'll sprinkle in some high intensity like some group rides, and then I will do some going for KOMs and stuff like that. But I race a lot, so that's where a lot of my intensity comes from. Um, so basically, almost every weekend I'm racing. So and then in between, I'm just you know recovering and then getting in some solid endurance hours.
I love that. So, was there a reason that you said high zone two versus a different part of zone two?
Yeah, I guess obviously it's more stress, and I feel like that high zone two is it's more of like closer to race pace, I guess, without going too high. Um, and I've slowly over the years I've kind of built up what I can do in that endurance target for me. So um, like long endurance rides, my goal wattage like 4 years ago would be like 190 watts, 200 watts. But now, like over the years, I've slowly built that up to be like 250, 260. Um, and I feel like that type of training really, it does benefit you in these really long races. Like if you can do that kind of power for 5, 6 hours, then you're going to do pretty well in these long races.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're not really doing any like interval sessions, it sounds like, throughout the year. It's more like getting intensity with other group rides and KOM attempts and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I do ride the trainer when it's not great to ride outside. And, so this time of year, it's not great because of the daylight. So, and I work full time, so my window is when it's dark out. So I'll hop the trainer, and kind of by default, that is structured. So I will do some intervals on the trainer. Um, and then, so that's usually from, around this time of year until late winter. Um, Then I'll also do some strength training as well. Mostly just focused on maintenance at this point. That can be pretty intense as well.
For sure. So are you saying like the winter lifting is maintenance, or you're just saying from your past lifting experience it's maintenance now? Or what are you doing
Yeah.
for the winter season for lifting?
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you more of a backstory on my lifting experience. So in 2021, I kind of started to get into it. Before that, I've never touched the weights. So basically, my whole road career was I never did it. And then I got into it in 2021, and I kind of researched it more, and I knew that putting on some more muscle would benefit me in mountain bike racing, mostly because it just helps with durability. Like having more muscle is also protective. Like you're going to crash, and having something to protect you is better than just being a string bean roadie that is going to break a collarbone if they tip over. So I really, it was a mindset shift for me. Like coming from the road, like you want it to be as light as possible, but then going to mountain biking, I wanted to put on muscle mass. So that was my main goal starting out, training like typical bodybuilder, high rep, like extreme burn, time under tension, focusing on eccentric loading. That was a focus for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I put on about 20 pounds. And then once I reached a point where like I felt like, okay, that's enough. Then I just entered like a maintenance phase. So now it's just focused on maintenance of strength. So it's mostly explosive lifting that's heavy as well, and very low volume. So it's just like 1 or 2 10-minute sessions per week, 2 hard sets of squats, and that's it basically.
No upper body stuff for this time?
No, I'll do some core, but yeah, no bicep curls.
What are you doing for core work, and how often?
Usually like once a week. I should do more. I should probably do like 2 or 3 times a week, but I don't like it. It's like a 10 to 15 minute circuit, planks. I have like a ball that I'll sit on and do kind of ball sit-ups, and then back raises, and I'll do sit-ups, and yeah, just focusing on, I guess, the abdominal region and the back, because those can take a beating during mountain bike racing, and having that be a solid foundation is pretty important.
Have you had issues with low back pain or anything mountain biking?
Yeah, I have, and I feel like it is pretty common with mountain biking and cyclocross, especially. It has been an issue for me. It's the like mid to lower back, just like right around the spine, and I think it is triggered by like very hard efforts at low torque, which are kind of inevitable in mountain biking and cross. So maybe if I do core 3 times a week, it'll help.
So that's what you're thinking as a solution, is maybe some more core work.
Yeah. Um, I think just having that stable foundation is important. And recently, like I do feel the back issues have been more of an issue now compared to like when I was road racing, and I have more raw power now. So there's more, I guess, torque and stress on the body in general. And if it's off like just slightly, then more power can just kind of make things a bit worse.
So 20 pounds is pretty crazy. How does that feel like in comparison? And how does that feel on the bike and everyday life? And I mean, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah. I mean, everyday life, it's way better. Like I look normal. I don't look like a 120-pound string bean. And on the bike, it's better as well for mountain biking. Like I feel like I said, I have more raw power, and the watts per kilo are like the same, basically. It does take time to put on muscle and then build up the aerobic capacity of that muscle that you just put on. And so it can take time. And it was like I said, a mindset shift of like saying I want to put on muscle and I want to be just stronger overall in general. And it does help with marathon mountain biking because you are alone a lot of the time during the race, and you're going to be on flat sections where the raw power is going to be better. So I think just overall being a bit heavier is better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you kind of live in a cold climate in Massachusetts, and you just chatted a little bit about riding the indoor trainer. I know a lot of athletes have trouble with riding the indoor trainer all winter. Do you have any suggestions or tips about how to keep it fresh or build a good relationship with the trainer?
Yeah. Um, Entertainment. So, whatever uh, you like to watch on YouTube or Netflix, like have that in front of you. Um, I like to listen to music sometimes, especially when like if you're doing some intervals and watching something like you can't really focus, like music is better for that. Um, and yeah, I I guess the virtual stuff is pretty fun. Um, Makes it, I mix it up in some Zwift races sometimes. That's pretty motivating. Yeah, and I guess having a routine as well. Like I always hop in the trainer in the morning, and it's just part of my daily routine, and I feel good afterwards. Get the endorphin rush. So just yeah, learning to enjoy that routine and that process is important.
For sure. So let's see. So how do you feel like you handle like so much racing and traveling throughout the year with a full-time job? Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes. I'm luckily I have enough vacation time to do these things, um, and you know, the two main focuses of my life are work and then um, cycling, basically, and that's what I dedicate most of my time to. I'm single, so I don't have a family to care for. That's definitely going to change in the future at some point. So, but right now it's just basically any free time I have. I'm training or traveling to a race or planning for a race, and I really enjoy it. So that's like the most important thing is like just finding enjoyment in this sport is super important.
For sure. Yeah, it seems like that's definitely like a thread throughout your overall riding and like training philosophy, which is really great. Do you have any tips for success for newer athletes that you'd like to share? Maybe along with what you kind of just were saying about enjoying it or anything else like that?
Yeah, I'd say meet up with other cyclists and ride with them. Just being part of the community is one of the best things about the sport is you get to meet other people and ride with them and explore new places. So find cycling friends. Um, Consistency is super important. If you want to get better at it, you just gotta, consistency is key. It's kind of, it's been said over and over, but like it really is the most important thing. Like just to be consistent. Um, and I guess having a decent routine and how cycling fits into your life is good.
What are some of your goals for next season?
I'd like to go for the NUE series again next year. I was talking to the series organizer Ryan O'Dell that no one has won it 3 times in a row. So if I could do that, that would be pretty awesome. So that's the main goal for next season. I'm not going to do all of them again. I think that was a bit much. So I think I'll do probably most of them, but definitely the ones on the East Coast. I really liked High Cascades last year, so I think I'll do that. That's out in Bend, Oregon. But yeah, that's the main focus for next year.
Great. Is there anything specific that you're going to be focusing on improving for next year or just keep doing what you're doing?
More core. Yeah, seriously, I think that's one thing I can definitely improve on is minimizing risk of injury, like tweaking your back or IT band issues. Like those little things can hold you back sometimes. So yeah, over this winter I'll probably do some more core. But overall, I think the approach to training is going to stay the same.
I love that. Sweet. Well, that's all the questions I had. Thank you so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun, and you had some great insights on marathon mountain bike racing. And congratulations on the awesome season, and good luck next year.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for having me.
For sure.